Hello, hello. Hope you're all doing good. All is good here. We're now on puppy time, which means I wake up at 6 a.m. every morning and go to bed at like 9:30 in the evening because puppy needs to do puppy things at puppy times. Hope you're all good. It's Thursday. All right. Nice to see you all here. Yeah, I hope you're all doing really well. What do you guys use to get a proper black on newsprint with charcoal? I use a 6B. Seems to work pretty well. Or just press really hard. No good ever came from being outdoors. Oh, Doug. Doug. Good to see you, man. Cool. So what's her name? Whose name? Jaeger? The model's name? Couldn't tell you, I'm afraid. But you can get her full reference back at Grafit Studio. Assuming that's what you meant, although maybe you're talking about something else. Okay. Definitely a change of pace from the previous session, right? As far as the model type, but once again, fascinating design language and, you know, just... Oh, the doggy's name. Of course, sorry. You see, that's what sleep depravity does to you. Depravity? Would that be the way to use that? I don't know if it would. Sleep deprivedness. Depravity seems wrong. Anyway, we don't have a name for the dog yet. The puppy. Her name is beautiful, gorgeous, sweetheart. All of those get used every day. Proper name though? I don't know. We had to bring her to the vet yesterday. They're like, what's her name? We're like, puppy. Deprivation. Thank you. Thank you, Lulu. Yes, deprivation. Thanks. Yeah, of course. Well, that's what sleep deprivation does. But it's worth every minute of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. She is absolutely fantastic and gorgeous, and yeah, what can I say? Welcome, Dean. First stream. Good stuff. Okay, I'd say let's get cracking. Let me change camera view. You guys are gonna have to keep on top of things. If I'm just, you know, not changing cameras or getting the timer set or whatever, please just give me a heads up. There we go. Okay, let's start. We'll start with the 15, I think. Might go over on this. I haven't drawn this model in a while, and I just want to kind of get back into the groove with her, and just, you know, we'll see what happens, so to speak. Puppy breath and snuggles. Oh, you've no idea, Margot. Well, you do have an idea, I'm sure, if you've had one yourself. But Every time I look at her, she's distractingly beautiful, and I'm not getting half enough done. Spending way too much time with her. Okay. Time is set. Yeah, names are tough. We're definitely overanalyzing it too, I think. We're overthinking it. Because, you know, you want a name that you're going to be comfortable with in public. When you have to call her name. So, I don't know. It's a good problem to have, though. So, obviously, and I think we kind of touched on this before, that with heavier set model, certain landmarks are harder to find, can be trickier to locate. But we do have kind of clues. You know, we know the iliac crest is going to be sitting here because the mass of the oblique is sitting here. So even though we can't see the acis, we still know the iliac crest to be there. And the stomach is going to give us a good sense of where that line going around the form is. We know that if we could see it, the acis would be about here on the other side, but of course it's going to be obscured by mass. So we will adjust accordingly. Still get a hint though with her where this sartorius is, right? You can still kind of see very gently that subdivision right there. Manubrium. Clavicles coming up this way. Head of the humerus is going to be about here. Love the shape language on this arm going up this way, and then her forearm wrapping around her other arm. She's kind of sitting here. Compression right here. And that idea actually follows around the form, kind of comes around like this, almost kind of suggesting where the arch of the rib cage is, although obviously it's higher, but we can use it as a subdivider in a similar way. Naming something is a form of possession. You should stick with puppy. Yeah, until she's older, and then does that? I don't know. Does that work? Maybe. If you saw the group chat with me and the family, with going back and forth on names, it's kind of ridiculous. Because everyone in the family, like, you know, a name will get suggested and then immediately someone will be like, I know a fill in the blank, the name, and I don't care for that person. Or, you know, I know someone who had an animal with that name, and so, you know, it's kind of out. And that's kind of been the running theme. So we have the mass of the pectoral coming down here, obviously more volume than we've been having, but it's still the pectoral. is why none of the kids would tell us the grandbabies' names until after they were born. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. It's a process that might be easier if it was just myself and my wife doing this. We could, of course, just, you know, keep the kids out of the process, but I don't know how well that would go down. So this arm is actually coming across. We do want to suggest this hand here. Okay, so center line, and we have the mass of the volume of the stomach. So this is a great opportunity to use our center line to help bring that mass from the rib cage sitting here, coming in. And then this is sitting here. Notice how at the center line, this volume just kind of goes in ever so slightly, right? Just does that type of thing. Pull that up just a tiny bit. Let's see. I didn't notice the paw print. That's funny. Okay, so I'm gonna get into, of course you guys can't see the foot. Oh, one thing I need to do, which I forgot to do before the stream, which is I take a bit of kneaded eraser and I just pop it under the drawing board to stop it from shifting around. There we go. Alright, I'm going to just get into it here. I'm going to start with this arm, and that might seem like a bit of a strange place to start, but somehow it feels intuitively right. Okay. I'm going to come down here. Something like so. So we got this compression sitting in here, and then that's going to be coming around the form this way. Something like that. All right, let's move around the form over to here. Not a fan of having two light sources. Yeah, Rick, yeah, you know my feelings on it. I tend to agree with you. I would much rather have a single light source or a very, very soft secondary light source that's really acting more like, you know, reflected light than as a second light source. But in saying that, you know, at least for me, I think I would favor the light source coming from this direction, right from her left side, the dominant light source, and I would ignore this rim light on the right side of her on her form, because I think that you know, we want to light the front of the form, or at least that's what I'm planning on doing, and so it just seems like a, you know, kind of a logical one to follow. And it's good in that respect that the light source is at least nice and consistent. So I think, you know, we'll get away with it. But I do agree. I'm going over time-wise, aren't I? Yep, it's happening, guys. It's happening. This will be closer to 20. great design language going on, great shapes to work with. Just as interesting as working, you know, with a athletic, muscular kind of model. Okay. Let's get in, let's hit this with some core shadows, because I do think it's gonna help, you know, help describe form a little bit. Data cat. Nice. We have Easter this weekend, don't we? I'm gonna do the stream on Monday. I know it's a long weekend for people and stuff, and it's Easter weekend, but I think I'm gonna stream Monday anyway. And you know, if people can make it, that would be great. If not, I get it. Practice is practice. Now, the only problem with not using that backlight, the one coming from that direction, is this feels like a lot in tone. Anyway. It is what it is. Can we draw rabbits? Oh, Jesus. We actually have a model that has Jesus-like qualities about the way they look. Maybe we could draw that person. Let's see. Talking of rabbits, I'm not necessarily saying I'd do it in this stream, but my desire to draw animals has increased recently, and I haven't actually pulled the trigger on it. I used to draw animals quite a bit, but especially since getting the little girl in my life, I do think like drawing animals would be a nice kind of change of pace. So thinking about that. I think we talked about it before, but never pulled the trigger on it. I wonder if YouTube would find a way to demonetize those videos too. Probably. Can't have a dog without clothes, can you? Yeah, I'm very undecided. This, as I said, this feels like a massive amount of tone. I think I might just leave this as a diagrammatical drawing, because I don't really want to fill all of that in with tone. Plus, we've already gone 20 minutes on this one, so it's probably a good place to call it. Actually, just adding the core shadow from this second light source does kind of help fill in, subdivide this very large area, right? Just a little bit, just that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there. God, drawing's filthy. Jaeger was kind enough to point out a pencil to me, made by Generals. I think it's called Primo. Now, I haven't picked one up yet, but after she told me about it, I did do a little bit of research. And someone was saying in the research that I read that they're as dark as the regular Generals, but they don't smudge as much. That sounds super appealing. Because I do sometimes wonder, can it really just be me being sloppy? Oh, Lulu's asking, did you find a good pencil? Well, that's the answer. So I've yet to pull the trigger on ordering them. I can get them here, apparently. I believe I can get them through Amazon. You see, like so many things, Amazon is just, unfortunately, the easiest route sometimes. But in protest of Amazon's Prime ads thing, I got rid of my Prime account. And Amazon are onto this. And you used to be able to get free shipping with Amazon if you didn't have Prime, but you were prepared to wait a while. Now it seems like standard is like £4 to deliver anything. So it's like, do I really want to get Prime again? Not really. Anyway, sorry, just there you go. They're not as gritty either. Right, yeah, exactly. Well, you know, Jaeger, the 6Bs, General 6Bs used to not be gritty. They used to be smooth. And in fact, I recently got a box of Generals like they used to be. Smooth, really nice. But they do feel quite smudgy. But they could be me. It could be me. Puppy nudes, right? All animals are nude, right? Like, so, anyway, I'm guessing it won't be an issue. I would hope YouTube would be fine with animal drawing. I am joking, of course they would be. I hate those commercials, but I gave up Netflix, so I feel like I have to have Prime for my shipping stuff. I know. And it is handy to have the free Prime TV, but now with the ads, it just bothers me. Streaming, everything's streaming. All right, let's start the next pose. Well, I'm gonna say we'll do a 15. Yeah, you know what that means. This is a tough pose. This is a toughie. Let's give it a go. Yeah, I love the idea of getting rid of some of not being so reliant on these services, but yeah, this is the world we live in. So we've got the upper torso, and this is the rib cage. Obviously, she's coming towards us. You know, I kind of want to just do this to kind of show the top of the shoulders before the form turns away, just to help a little bit with understanding this volumetrically. So head of the humerus, because the arm is pushed up, the head of the humerus is about here. And this arm is kind of going down in this direction, and then like this, with that wrist about here, relative to the gluteus being about here. Okay. Because of the foreshortening on this pose, this is another one of those cases of just pushing and pulling until we find the general location of things, you know. Still get a sense that the sacrum is sitting around here, maybe a tiny bit lower. But once again, you know, stuff's all a little bit harder to see. But you can almost get a sense of, okay, the iliac crest is kind of coming around this way, right? We can't really see it, but what we can see is a direction change. So I think we can use that direction change as kind of our cue, or our clue to what's happening there. So, with this all said, if this form is representing the top, the scapula is sitting about here, going up, a chromium process is sitting about there, right? Then we can see the mass of the deltoid sitting in here. Something like that. Camera. I'm going to pull the board down so you can see what I'm drawing. There we go. Yeah, you know, I haven't watched network television in years. We don't even have it connected these days. Everything is streaming. Plus, I will not pay the license fee for the BBC. So I choose not to watch the BBC, which makes not having an aerial connected to the TV real easy. Because I think it's an antiquated system, the TV license fee. It's like absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that they prosecute people for not having a TV license in this day and age, it's an archaic model, and the BBC need to update their policies and their methods or they will die. It's simple as that. Literally prosecuting the vulnerable, like older people that don't understand the system, and prosecuting them for not having a TV license, I think it's beyond gross. So I will absolutely have no part of that. And it's a shame. They do put out some good programs. But it's a sacrifice worth making. Of course, you guys in the States, you don't have this TV license issue. But they will literally force themselves into people's homes to intimidate them, to say they're there to check to see if they have their televisions connected. And if they find it's connected, that's enough for them to go after these people. Disgusting. So her knee is actually, once again, foreshortening's a funny old thing, isn't it? Her knee is above the shoulder line here, sitting up here. And we have the mass of this leg coming down this way, something like that. Oh, I'm forgetting about other legs, aren't I? We do have the small thing of the fact that there is a leg on this other side. And if I look at the separation of the gluteus here, I come across, the heel is right about here. Nice straight, simple shape for the foot. It's going to be sitting in there, something like that. Yeah, they do that, Lulu. Nasty pose, yeah, it's pretty nasty. Well, the Foreshortening TV license letters were quite a surprise when they moved over. I'm telling you, they're intimidating and they freak you out. Yeah, yeah, they don't discriminate who they'll send a letter to, for sure. Can you watch their news on YouTube? No, you're not meant to. You're not meant to watch it, any live television or any of their services, like whether it's on YouTube or, you know, on your phone or whatever. They're like, nope, you're not meant to do it. And the thing is, you can't even sign into the BBC. Like at one point I downloaded the BBC News app onto my phone, and it wanted me to log in just to use a news app. Like, deleted that thing faster than you could say delete. If anyone can render the right breast properly, I'll send them a batch of homemade cookies. Oh, Rick, challenge accepted, thank you. Music is appropriate, yeah. If they try to force their way into a home in someone in Texas, they ain't getting out alive. Well, yeah, but that's a different problem altogether, isn't it? Yeah, no, really, I'm not going to worry too much about the news, but you know, still, principle and all that. Anyway, I just live without it. It's not a deal breaker. Plenty of sources of misery if you want them. And I keep saying to myself, you know, I'm going to stop looking at the news and all of that, and it never lasts too long. Because there's a part of me that feels like I really need to know what the hell's going on, you know? Although, luckily, it doesn't help you guys in the States, but luckily, as bad as things are here, it's not quite as crazy as it is over there. All right. Excuse me. News is only fear-mongering these days. Well, the problem is, I think that news sources have unfortunately, you know, they've kind of lost, a lot of them seem to have lost credibility in the public's mind. And frankly, no matter which side of the fence you're on this, news sources, you know, there used to be a time when you would take the news as kind of like, okay, that's what's happening. You would assume that it was correct. And nowadays, everyone seems to be trying to just muddy the water and, you know, just pollute with enough nonsense that telling fact from fiction becomes tricky. Anyway, I don't want to get into a political debate, because politics is just dividing everyone, and such a shame, you know. What happened to being able to just respectfully disagree with your neighbor about something, and kind of agreeing to disagree and move on? It's like that seems to have disappeared as an idea. I think I'm going to have to push this foot out a little bit. I haven't really left enough room for the calf and the business there, so I'm going to push this foot out to here. So we can actually kind of see the knee, or just a hint of it, sitting in here. I'm actually going to push this arm over just a tiny bit, and when I go in dark here, just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, this poses a challenge. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments. You know, I read an interest, or not read, or did I read, or hear? I forget even the way that I consume some pieces of information. But you know, so much of this issue, I think, comes down to not only is it like 24-hour news cycles, but it's like hourly news cycles, right? Like things changing constantly, and these media companies needing to get you to reread or re-engage with a particular piece of news. And so they're constantly reinventing or respinning or retelling in a different way. And just the point this person was making was, you know, ever since we went to like these news cycles, which are refreshing, let's say, so quickly, this has got a lot to do with the issue of why news has become so muddied, and I think there's certainly some truth there. I don't think it's the only thing. I think culture, though, too, you know. Culture has played such a big part. and the complete disregard or lack of respect for other people's opinions and thoughts on things if they don't align with your own ideology. So much venom involved these days. That's what's so upsetting. Anger. Alright, so we're getting there. Where are we at? 17 minutes. We got a few more minutes work left on this one, don't we? I haven't even done anything with this hand yet. Anyway. Luckily, well, not luckily, by design to some degree, I guess, this stream has stayed free of all of that noise, and I like it that way. I know every now and then we might bring something up, but I certainly don't want to bring all that negativity to this small window of time that we have a couple of times a week to just draw. We talk about puppies. That's a good topic of conversation. I tell you, my wife we were talking about this the other day, how much I've softened in my old age. I don't think that's a bad thing. That, like, I've become just such a, I don't know, yeah, a softie. Okay, so the hairline is down here. This area is about here. Yeah, Lulu. I'm sorry, I'm just reading a comment. I'm agreeing with your social interaction comment. I have some people that I really respect deciding to ignore politics. I feel like Chicken Little. Rick, I do hear, and I'm certainly not ignoring it, but please take what I'm saying in the spirit it's meant, or that I mean to. Maybe I'm not being clear with my with the way that I'm framing things. I do think also, though, it's okay to kind of, you know, or to, you know, just to like, yeah, like, look, the thing is, I think the problem, at least for the folks in the States right now, it's that and I guess you could say, regardless of which side you're actually on this debate, the stakes, at least in your mind, or not even just in your mind, real or imagined, the stakes are so high. Because the United States also influences obviously global politics, right? Like, and so yeah, I do get the sense of frustration and fear about what's happening currently. Absolutely. I guess, as they say, you know, just people need to get out and vote, right? Yeah, this is a tough pose. I think light source wise, I'm actually going to probably follow what's going on from this direction, at least to start with, and then I'll see whether it feels like it's missing something. Let's freshen the pencil. And once again, this is as much about just trying to subdivide these large areas by putting in the core shadow as much as anything else. Good art, good music, and good literature. Margot, cheers to that. Absolutely. Don't apologize, Lulu. It's all good. You know. Thanks, Scratch Force. Yeah. Come back whenever you're ready. Lately I've been drawing just faces, says Rick. That's great. I've embraced 3mm 4B. It's working with figure now that I'm used to it. Yeah, look, the reality is you're just going to be drawing a lot smaller, right, Rick? But hey, look, if it's working. There's no rules. There's no right and wrong. Do it. I refuse to vote, so it's never my fault, says Volvo. Yeah, look, that's one strategy. Once again, that's absolutely your right and your prerogative. always vote, says Margot. Yeah. You know, here's the thing. On the face of it, I would say always vote. It's very hard, though, and once again, now I'm getting pulled back into politics, but I'm just going to say this real quickly. The fundamental issue with American politics, in my mind, is the Electoral College. The fact that when the presidential election can come down to literally less than half a dozen counties in states, and they can decide who the president of the United States is, I think you have a fundamental problem with your voting system. And I'm an American citizen, and I have voted in the United States, so I'm going to say that I can have an opinion on this. The Electoral College is outdated, and I think it's a horrific way to decide who leads a nation. So I can understand why you can live, especially when you live in a heavily one way or the other state, I can understand why you can start taking the mentality that your vote doesn't count. Not necessarily that that's true, but it doesn't help. It really doesn't help. It should be one person, one vote. Count them all up. Whoever gets the most votes, guess what? They're running the country or representing the country. So until the United States fixes the Electoral College, the whole thing is kind of ridiculous, truth be told, in my opinion. But it's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. I said drop the subject. Could you please define, Tina, again back to the important things, could you please define core shadow? Absolutely, Tina, I will do that. I'm going to just do a little quick demo for you here, Tina. If my pencil wants to work, you see I think it's got that gum on it. Sorry. Okay. Okay, imagine we have a cylinder. Right? And we have a light source coming from this direction. So let's say it's actually, just to be clear, let's say that we're just going to be real clear about this light source. Let's say it's kind of coming from like this, right? So it's primarily hitting in this region here. Well, we're going to basically, what we're going to ultimately end up with, right? If we just look at it at its core, excuse the pun, is we're going to end up with something like that. We're going to have the lit side of the form and the side of the form that's in shadow, right? And what we want to normally try and do in that situation is divide that, let's say in this case, this is roughly about 60-40, right? You want to avoid 50-50. Tends to not work very well, tends to look clunky and ugly. 70-30 works very well too. This could just as easily be here, right? And this part could be in shadow. Point is this. Right at the transition point, going from the lit side of the form to the shadow side of the form, we have something called the core shadow. And ironically enough, well, it's not ironic, but this part of the shadow right here is actually potentially, not always, but potentially the darkest part of the shadow. Because what's happening is, we would actually also, if you think about it, we would have cast shadow coming off in this direction too, right? Something like that. Why is this the darkest part of the shadow? Because the light particles of photons are coming across, and they're bouncing off this surface here, and they're bouncing back towards the object. So we can call this the shadow side of the form. You could also call this reflected light, right? So as the form is turning, this tends to be the darkest part of the shadow, but then because of the bounce light, this part of the shadow tends to be lighter. And I'll try and find a really clear example on the reference, Tina, so you can see it. But so this is the core shadow. So when I'm talking about things like this line here, for example, or this line here, this is the darkest part of the shadow, right? Because if we imagine all of this in tone, right, we're going to have a lot of that reflected, bounced light in this area of the form as the light goes this way, bounces off here, and bounces back towards the form, right? So when I'm talking about drawing in core shadows, and you don't want to just go down and do a very kind of mechanical line like this, right? This is clunky and this is not natural, because also what tends to happen is the softer the curve, so imagine a ribbon like this, right? And imagine the same kind of light source. Let's say this is in shadow here. The softer the curve, you might not have any core shadow at all. It'll just be a transition from light into tone. But if you have a form that's more like this, there's much bigger likelihood that you're going to have a core shadow sitting here, right? That's kind of the principle. So you want there to be core shadow in some parts of the form where the form's turning nicely, but then in other parts of the form, it might just be a soft gradient, right? Imagine like really like soft curvature to something. It's just going to be a nice soft gradient, right? So that's kind of what we mean by core shadow. Hope that helps. If things go wrong here now, remember, will you trade lodging for dog sitting services? I can be there in about 3 days. Rick, you'll be very welcome in the UK, I'm sure. Come on over. Well, I don't know if I could just put you up on the forever, but you're welcome to come visit. Go for a bike ride, bring the dog, be fun. Rick, get in line. You can hear Richard's cognitive dissonance. Very frustrating, the Electoral College, yes. And also term limits need to be in place, 100%. I think age limits need to be in place, if truth be told. Yeah, amen for getting rid of the Electoral College. It's just out of date, I'm sorry, it just is. I get why it was put in place. It made sense at one point in time. Although, did it? Possibly. But I can see the logic behind it. But now, I have dual citizenship, Margot. Yeah. For those of you who care for a bit of my history, my dad was quite a bit older. My dad was like 50 when I was born. My mum was obviously a bit younger. But my dad served actually in the Second World War, and after the Second World War there was a big push to get people to move to the States. And my dad moved to upstate New York. He actually worked for Seagram's, sold booze all up and down the East Coast. And he was there over 10 years and he became a citizen. And so then when I was 11 years old, they brought me down to the American embassy and I got my American passport. And at the time, I didn't really know what that was going to mean for me, but it turned out to be very, very useful. And I'm very glad to have it, and I'm very proud to have it. I certainly don't take it for granted. But then consequently, like my children, for example, they have 3, because my wife's Irish, so they have EU, English, and American passports. Totally agree on the Electoral College, but some of our problems are really at the state and local level. A lot of people don't pay attention to that at that level, and the issues bubble up. Fair point, Doug. Fair point. You're not wrong. For puppy sitting, yeah. God, I need to just do a stream of just the puppy. They'll probably be one more popular than my drawing stream. popular vote would work. I think it would work. I don't see any reason why not. Bounce light. Exactly. Yes, and then there's occlusion, although what is that? Numbra? I don't know, Numbra. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Softer curve, more gradual transition. You are correct. Any tips or suggestions how to learn to draw the effect of foreshortening? I'm terrified whenever I see foreshortening arms and legs. Shall we have a little, I'm going to just talk about this for a quick second. Sorry guys. You guys can keep drawing the poses, but let's just talk about it. So foreshortening is like, when I'm doing a foreshortened pose, I switch the way I start thinking. So if I'm drawing a standing pose, let's just say, right, just something very, very simple, just standing pose, right? Something like that. Maybe the arms are going out like this. There's long lines of action, right? And we can get real gestural. And so it's really easy to be thinking rhythmically in these types of terms. But then when we get to a foreshortened pose, suddenly everything is kind of, stacked. So I shift gears and I start thinking more in terms of, at least in the beginning stages, I start thinking more in terms of volumes. What volumes are making up the large ideas, right? Might be a box, a cylinder, another box. At least in my mind's eye, I'm trying to start, I switch to thinking in this type of term. So imagine, in this case here, we've got a leg coming down this way, a knee doing something like that. But in a case like this, let's say we have lower torso, this box just representing the pelvis real quick. What I will do is I will find the end point. So let's say on this leg here, maybe the knee's about here, right? Something like that, and then this leg could be going down, something like that. But maybe this knee or leg is almost coming towards me. What I tend to do is I try and find, if I think about this as a cylinder, I try and find this end point. So I might say, okay, well actually the knee seems like it's about here. I find that, I know it's connected here, and I can think volumetrically, right? I think in simple terms, cylinders, boxes, and this type of thing, right? Spheres. And then I can say, okay, well now I can start building out, and I can understand this volumetrically. And if I'm thinking volumetrically, it's much easier to understand how the foreshortening works. So I always find the end point. Where is the end point in this situation? It's the knee. I find that in relative to the forms on the body, right? I look for clues or cues where this is sitting. Find that, understand where it's connecting, and then you then join the dots. The thing is, then with foreshortening, coming back to this long line of action idea, I then look for the long line of action in the anatomy. So I might see, for example, there's nice rhythmical ideas coming up this way, coming up here. We might have long lines. So we've still got nice long rhythmical lines. But I'm switching the order in which I'm looking for them, right? Here I'm looking for the long lines in a relatively straight pose. I'm looking for the long lines in the beginning. When it's a heavily foreshortened pose, I switch to this method. And then I look for long lines, rhythmical lines. I look for the rhythm in the pose further on down in the process. It's not to say that, maybe the torso is kind of coming, maybe it's going in this direction, right? Maybe the head's going back, something like this. It's not like I'm not looking for that curve at this point. But it's easier for me to just kind of switch gears and say, okay, in a series of volumes and shapes going away. Imagine like a tube of tennis balls, right? We've got 1, 2, 3 on top of each other. But if we turn that tube of tennis balls, it would be doing something like that, right? So I'm thinking in these terms. That makes sense? That's a very, very short, quick and dirty explanation, but hopefully it helps. Okay. Let's get on to the next pose. Also, I would say, you know, another thing, Utsav, sorry, to consider with foreshortening. Start with poses that, you know, it may be like most of the pose is relatively straightforward, but maybe there's an arm that's foreshortened or a leg that's foreshortened. Certainly don't start a foreshortening, studying foreshortening with a body that's kind of lying on a gurney and you're at the feet end of the business. Like, it's going to be really hard for you to get your head around. But usually, even with a standing pose, something on the body is probably going to be foreshortened. Even if it's just an arm doing that, it's like, okay, I've got one arm that's got some foreshortening to deal with. And then you kind of break into it slowly. You can start applying that concept. Let's find the elbow. Let's find the elbow relative to the shoulder. Find where that is in space. Oh, look, it's just below my ear kind of thing. Okay, I pop that there, and then I draw in between. And you have to trust the process, right? Do you use Conte 710Bs? No, I find Contes to be real scratchy. Personally, in my experience, I don't care for Conte. So no. Cool history. Thanks for sharing. You're very welcome. Americans don't hand out passports to just anyone. They used to, Lulu. My dad got one, so there was a time that they would give one to anyone, just about. And I'm in a pencil jam here. I've gone through a bunch of these. Delilah versus Puppy upvote battle, 4524. The stream got derailed at the point of Amazon Prime. Might as well do foreshortening. You know, Rick, that's a really good point. And just to kind of finish off that point, just one last thing. Apologies, folks. I give this exercise all the time to people starting out. I just did it there, but just, even though like so many people go, this is too easy, you know, but just to fill a page with a series of volumetric shapes, kind of, you know, you can kind of snake them almost, you know, you could do this type of thing, right? Maybe this one's coming in this direction, something like that. Just to get used to drawing volumes, to drawing three-dimensional volumes on a two-dimensional surface is really useful practice. Because then you can say, okay, light source is coming from this way. How would I shade this? Okay, well, I know that this is going to be in shadow. You know, there's probably a core shadow about here, then this is going to be in tone here, this one's probably in tone here. You know, then you could get into cast shadows, although I would tend to simplify these down to kind of simple shapes, the cast shadow. Cast shadows are generally going to be darker, at least at their origin point where they make contact right here. It's usually the cast shadows are usually darker than the reflected light, obviously, because we don't have the reflected light that's coming off this form and hitting here. Right? So we could do something like that. That's probably going to be in tone. You know, so you can play around with that. It's a fun exercise, and it's really good practice, honestly, especially if you're starting out. Okay, let's get back to business, shall we? When does UK time change this spring? I think, Doug, I think it's this Sunday, but I'm not 100% sure. It's either this Sunday or the following. Boxes are everything. I think in boxes, arches, spheres, etc. Do you want me to beat him up? You are correct. Yeah, to think conceptually in boxes is, or to volumes, or like simple volumetric shapes, is so key. If you can look at a complex form, anatomy, and just try in your mind's eye think, okay, where are the plane changes, right? Where are we going? Where is the surface turning from one to the other in simple forms? like in boxes and that. Or sometimes I use hybrids. Sometimes I'll use a hybrid that's a morph halfway between a box and a sphere, right? Or a box and a cylinder. Like, as you develop the skill, you learn to kind of push that just to the point of breaking and then pull back, you know? It's fun. Exactly. Everything you're saying, your name is very long. Do you want me to beat him up? Yeah, everything you're saying is correct. You clearly, you know what you're talking about. So yeah. Daylight should change tomorrow, I think. In the UK, when it always happens on a Sunday. It happens on a Saturday night, right? I don't think it happens midweek or end of week like this. Exactly. Once again, oh, I'm just, yeah. Okay. Yeah, this has been a mishmash of ideas, this stream. Apologies to anyone who's expecting just a regular figure drawing session. This happens occasionally. But it's Thursday, we're heading into the weekend. We can allow ourselves a little bit of leeway with the sharing of ideas. Okay, so I'm going into landscape mode for this one, and my pencil situation's dire. I've already gone through 5 pencils. All right, well, I think we can get this next pose done. And then I might have to do some sharpening. 31st, I am informed. Yes, but not, oh, in the UK, Potato Kitty? You could be right. I don't know. I'm never good with remembering the daylight savings. Best stream. Thanks, Mugger. 5. It's not really impressive. It means that I'm being clumsy with my use of materials. Well, I've gone through 4. This is the 5th. Oh, actually, no. There's the 5th. So yeah, I've gone through 5. Let's hit number 6. These are 6Bs. You just have to look at them and they blunten down on you. All right, let's. God, we're only hitting pose number 3. I'm sorry, guys. Well, you know, we can always rapid fire a few at the end. Let's do another 15, shall we? I'm having trouble making heads. Please suggest something. It's a huge thing. I actually find thinking of heads in terms of, at least for me, thinking in terms of boxes rather than eggs and that type of thing really helps. Like, yeah, you can think, okay, a head, you know, we can think in these types of terms, where we have a sphere, you know, and we can think in these terms, and that's fine. There's absolutely a place for that. But for me, the front of the head tends to be the face tends to sit on a much flatter plane than you might first think. And I think that when you start with an egg shape or you start with spheres, there's this tendency to want to wrap things around that form. So I tend to like to think more in terms of, you know, kind of a box. This, to me at least, makes a little bit more sense. But once again, for at least for heads, I think the Riley method's a pretty logical way to kind of take a stab at it. I don't like the Riley method for figure, to be honest. I think it doesn't work. It only works in static poses in my experience. But I think the Riley head works, the Riley system works. And Loomis, yeah, Loomis I feel like is a hybrid kind of the Riley method, or they feel like they come from a similar place. So I would look at both, honestly. I think I would look at Loomis's approach and I would look at the Riley method. But yeah, like, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Here's the thing, I think that, yeah, the Riley method, why it works for heads and not for bodies, in my opinion, is because apart from the fact that the jaw moves, and yeah, I know we have eyebrows and facial expressions, but everything's locked, right? Like everything's pretty much, like your eyes don't suddenly shift up here when you're surprised. So you've got a fixed system that works in a fixed way. And that's why I think the Riley method is successful for heads. I don't think it works for the body. The system that, or the Riley method I've seen at least, for the body, I don't care for. I think that there's better, at least in my opinion, for me, it's not a system I would use. But I would look at Loomis, I would look at Riley. I think that there is several different approaches to drawing the head. It's such a big subject, and frankly, people have asked me if I'll teach it. It scares the hell out of me, and I'm super reluctant to do it. Before I forget, kudos to the model for bucking convention and posing nude. Yeah, look, any model that's prepared to pose nude, I've got respect for, quite honestly. To a point. In fact, I'm going to take that back. There are models out there that think that the only prerequisite for modeling, for figure drawing, is the fact that they're prepared to get nude. And that is really not enough. I've worked with plenty of amazing, I was actually talking about this just like last night with a model. Obviously there's some amazing models out there, but I've also worked with some terrible models that like, well, I'm a nudist, so I can model. No, it's really not enough. You've got to bring more to the table than that, you know? But this model's great, really. People that use eggs, especially beginners, when not using a box, get in trouble with the placement of features. Exactly, yeah. Similar schools, yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is the problem with the sphere thing, right? Like, it's just tricky. You know what I like about the Riley method is I think what it does help with. I'm just going to call you beat him up. What I think it helps with, understanding how to light the face. It understands where the plane transitions are. It's not, to be honest with you, it's not really a method I use either. But if I've got to point someone in the direction of a learning system, I think it's a good way of understanding how to light the face for painting. Well, the problem also with the Riley method, in my opinion, is just the amount of line mileage. It's not great, and also, yeah, you can end up really messing up, creating a likeness when you get too formulaic. 100%. A Sarah head is better for that. Okay, yeah, you know, it's simpler. A Sarah method. There's less lines involved. You see, the problem with all of these methods is, coming back to the other point, is there's a potential to lose a likeness. But you do want that level of construction. You want the eyes to be sitting on a plane. You want the nose to have the proper construction, right? So they're good. It's almost like you want to learn those systems, and as soon as you've learned them, you want to forget about them, if that makes sense. For light, yes. I appreciate why you say that. Look, honestly, I think it really comes down. Let's start this bloody pose, shall we? I think it really comes down to a method that resonates with the individual. You know, we all have different ways of. We all kind of, all our minds kind of tend to work differently, and there are some systems that I think people just gravitate towards. And frankly, it's such a complex subject that if you find a system that works for you, knock yourself out, go for it. Far be it for me to tell you it doesn't work. I can only give my own experience. And honestly, I don't, you know, even though I've worked in animation for years, and in animation, frankly, it feels like you do nothing but draw heads. And that's my day job, or was my day job. I don't consider myself a head specialist. To be honest, I think, you know, it's people that understand that stuff far better than I do. I would seek out advice from people that seem to really know their stuff. And I wouldn't want to consider myself an authority on that subject at all. All right. So what did I say for this one? A 15, right? Yeah, let's try and do that, just in the interest of time. But I love when we get into these kind of conversations and debates, because, well, it makes for interesting chatting. So we have the oblique kind of sitting there. But obviously we have the mass that we do need to consider. Obviously it's obscured, but the breast, we can see just a hint of the mass of the breast there, which is coming off, obviously off the pectoral there. And then we do have the mass of the tummy, volume of the tummy there, coming around. Something like that. All right. What are your views on beans for torsos? Potato Kitty, I think it's absolutely, well, I sometimes use beans to some degree. I do tend to start off a little bit more boxy, but once again, it's a hybrid shape, right? It's coming back to that idea of boxes, cylinders, spheres, etc. And the bean I would consider like a hybrid, somewhere between like a cylinder and a box, right? Because it's to some respect, it's kind of like the rounded box concept, right? But yeah, look, the bean works. I don't tend to use it too much, but that's not because it's not a sound method. Beat 'em up says, haven't drawn in a while, usually I sketch digitally, fair enough. But I really love what charcoal can do as a medium. It's so fast to put down and creating beautiful shading. Yes, absolutely. That's what I love about charcoal too. It's, and especially to that point about it being fast, I have this kind of term where I say, on smooth newsprint is very fast paper. So with a 6B pencil in smooth newsprint, you've got a very fast medium, if that makes sense, which makes drawing quickly really easily, or much easier. Okay, what's this about pintos? What, pinto beans are we talking about now? All right, yeah, we went too deep, guys. All right, let's see. I think I said what, 15 for this one? We can't really see, let's see, this leg going away from us, calf coming towards us. And the heel of the foot is about here. Toes sitting about there. Okay. And then this hand is sitting about here. Okay, something like that. Then we do have this other arm. I'm just kind of get a hint of it here. Heel of the foot coming out, something like that. Okay. Faber-Castell polychromos. I love myself a polychromo on some animation paper. It's very fast, and I really enjoy polychromos on animation paper, which is a bond paper. I think it's about 160 GSM, give or take. Lovely medium, but terrible for it showing up on camera. Same with graphite. I can't use it on the stream because I get too much glare. So one good thing about the charcoal too is there's no camera glare. It's very matte, and the paper doesn't have any real shine to it. So it tends to be ideal for this type of thing. Just pulling out the volume of this just a little bit. I feel like I can use it. Is there a standard beam then? If it was me, I would tend to lean towards a squarer beam than a rounder beam, if that makes sense. But no, like, whatever beam helps you conceptualize the concepts in the most straightforward manner is the best beam. There's no right or wrong beam. Now we've got very Spielberg-esque again, haven't we? I feel like I'm off on an adventure. Okay, so let's give some clarity to some of these ideas. We've got rib cage. Obliques happening at this transition right here. Let's find that. And we'll come down this way. And then into the thigh. Yeah, we don't want to erase. Erasing's no fun. will you draw a bit of the leg under her for reference? You know, it's so dark. Yeah, I guess so. You keep calling me out, Margot. Yeah, there is a leg under there. It's really hard to tell what's going on. I think you could fashion a foot under there, honestly. I think that they, like, if I had to like just create a shape, I think a foot could go in there, but it's impossible. I cannot tell on my display what's going on there. I'd have to bring that into Photoshop and lighten it up. But yeah, something like that. Okay, so we have the oblique going into the rib cage, but it's a very kind of soft transition in there, and then we're coming up this way. And obviously her hair is coming down the form, which is really lovely. Hair is kind of draping over and then kind of down like so. Got an interesting shape to it. Then we've got a little wisp going in the other direction. So this is interesting. There is a wisp of hair going in this direction. I'm tempted to leave it off because kind of, well, let's see. I'm going to leave it off. It's going to mess with the idea of things sitting on the form in this direction, if that makes sense. Okay. I think her head is a little bit taller there. I've kind of gone off the edge of the page. Anyway, it's fine. So we're at 13 minutes. What did I say? I said 15, didn't I? Okay. And guys, I would really suggest that you avoid those splayed fingers on this hand. You know the drill. And we haven't even begun to get into tone. I would, with a drawing like this, I would absolutely go to conceptual lighting. There's no way I'm following what's going on the reference. It just doesn't really work for me. Looking something a little bit more like that. All right, I'm gonna leave it there. Take care, Lulu. Is there a categorization of beans versus poses? I'm not sure what you mean, Potato Kitty, because you use a bean to create a pose. So I would need clarity on what that means exactly. Actually, I don't need to take that off there. Leave it. Yeah, that was... Thanks, Lulu. Yeah, hitting the like button. Appreciate it. Yeah, charcoal rules. And I do need to do a quick pencil sharpening, guys. Sorry. Maeve says, I've been a little silent on this stream, but I just want to say thank you for doing this and offering company while I fix my nails. Haha, nice. Different type of art. It's art indeed. Alright, so we've got 3 poses to do. And we've got about 20 mins. Can you imagine someone just tuning in at this point? It's like that stream from a couple of weeks ago, which the conversation got really eclectic, and if someone had tuned in 2/3 of the way in, there would have been one. We were literally talking about how many words are there in a book and how many miles can you get out of a pencil, which according to Lulu, who looked it up, I think the standard HB pencil can do 33 miles. So there you go. Probably not on, I would imagine that's just on a regular standard paper surface, but apparently 33 miles is the number. So go figure. Because we were just talking about how many miles have you potentially drawn in your life, you know? So yeah, Lulu came to us with that little factoid, which I thought was fascinating because I didn't know that. Good man, Rick. Much appreciated. That's a nice puppy donation there. I will get the puppy. Actually, I need to buy the puppy something that will cost right around that amount. So you've just provided the puppy with hours of fun. Like the Disney sacks. Question mark. Well, the Disney sacks are basically a way of kind of giving a practical use to the idea of the bean shape, right? They are, for all intents and purposes, the bean shape. So yeah, the Disney flour sack concept, which is also a great way to practice animation as a beginner. Move a flour sack around. Great exercise. And do your bouncing balls. Don't neglect your bouncing balls. Is there already an action movie with beans? Probably. There's probably some animated product out there with beans. Yeah, I think I like this charcoal you're using. This is 6B General's charcoal. There's apparently, I have it on very good authority, there's one also made by General's called Primo, which is super smooth and less messy than these regular ones, which I am planning on getting shortly. His shading is amazing. Steve's great, man. Absolutely. Steve is very, 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 very good. There is no doubt. And this is the thing. You do get, you know, this is the nice thing with dirty, messy charcoal pencils. They do provide us with great opportunities for tone. So there is always a trade-off, right? Okay, so I deliberately put this pose next because I thought it'd be light relief after the last pose. So let's do it. And we've got 15 minutes. And as I said, we've got 3 poses. We might go over a little bit, but let's plan on a 5 to 7 minute pose, okay? See, chat's so busy, I'm spending so much time reading. What's a good way to get texture in a piece? There's a number of ways, Potato Kitty. Depends what type of texture you want, honestly. But you know, try things like kitchen towel. Like if you're working with charcoal and you've got tone down, try pulling out with kitchen towel. I'll even sometimes use like a putty eraser, a kneaded eraser. And if I've got a heavily kind of toned, textured charcoal surface, sometimes even just going in and pulling out can create some really nice textures. That's something you really want to experiment with and find what works. What's a Disney sack? Sounds dirty, says Rick. Rick, of course your mind went there. No, a Disney sack. So back in the old days, Disney would take a concept like basically something like this, right? And they put like little ears on it like this, and they would basically call it a flour sack, and they would animate this thing. So like when you're starting to animate, you can learn a lot about the principles of animation using a very simple shape, but the idea is it should move and have weight like a flour sack, and you could get a lot of expressions. So there's a Disney book called The Illusion of Life, written by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, two of the 9 old men, famous animators. And they have a page in that book of just showing how many different expressions you can have with just a flour sack. Everything from excited to down to all kinds of things, twisting it, like, oh, it's looking in one direction, it's looking another, all starting with this very, essentially the simplest shape that you can. And, you know, to be able to animate the flour sack convincingly would be like, you know, great step in your development as an animator. So that's the concept of the flour sack. And it came from Disney. Have to run. Nice seeing you on Twitch. Catch you next time. Take care. You're very welcome. Reset timer. Timer is reset. All right, let's... I read a thing about animating where they said that emotion is most expressed in the frames before and after the motion rather than the motion itself. Like punch. Okay, so basically what it means is in animation you have key poses. Right, let me just change camera view for a minute. So you might have animation is essentially built up with key poses, but the idea is you might have a pose over here and a pose over here, right? But you're gonna have what's called a breakdown drawing. So you go from here, but the breakdown drawing might be down here and then up to that pose there, right? That's your breakdown drawing. The concept behind that is the idea that the animation is actually in the breakdown drawings. That's where the animation comes alive. Because you've got a pose here, you know, if you just rotate over to here, this is kind of boring. But what if I come down like this in the breakdown and then pop back up, right? Or I might go the other way. I might start here and go up and down. That's the idea that the animation happens in the breakdown drawings. That's what that's referring to that's my belief. Okay, back to drawing. Good practice is 24 frame cycles, I think. Well, look, animation is essentially, traditional animation is essentially done on 24 frames, but you really want to animate on 2s, which means you'll be doing 12 drawings a second, not 24. You will use 24 frames a second when there's camera moves, when there's pans, so that things don't jitter. But you know, you could do a walk cycle on 8 frames, 12 frames, 16 frames. Like you know, if you're talking about walk cycles. So to just say 24 frame cycle, it's too vague. Okay. But really, the animation really does come alive in the breakdown drawings. I do believe that that's the case. Well, I know it's the case. I've worked in animation for 35 years. Okay. 5 minutes. Three-quarter back view. Nice pose. We do have to work kind of quickly here. Okay. Her right leg is supporting, and then this leg is coming forward. Yeah, it's been a fun stream, folks. Thanks so much for all the good conversation. Been a good one. I haven't known anything about animation or anyone who has done it. It's been very interesting to hear about it. It seems like it's changed so much over the years. Yeah, absolutely, Margot. Well, I think, you know, obviously, I would say in many ways the biggest changes that have happened to animation have been in the last, I'm going to say 25 years since the advent of computer animation. Up until that point, you know, for the 60, 70 years previous, the process was largely unchanged, honestly. Like, yeah, there's been little things here and there that have kind of changed, you know, as technology has kind of developed and evolved, like, you know, especially in the 60s, the advent of the Xerox machine meant that the drawings could be directly photocopied onto the celluloid that they would paint them on, right? That was a big transition, going away from the hand-inked drawings of, you know, from the conception of animation kind of thing. That was a big technological kind of breakthrough in the 60s. But, you know, for the most part, until I would say early 90s, then things stayed largely unchanged. And then early 90s, something called digital ink and paint came in, where you could start painting the drawings on the computer. And then, you know, and also then painting backgrounds on the computer and that type of thing. So those kind of changes happened. But then, you know, in the early 90s, moving forward, then computer animation really started to become a little bit more mainstream. And I would say with the release of Toy Story, I think it was what, 95? that's when the writing was really on the wall that computer animation, CG animation was going to change everything. And it did. Traditional animation continued for a while, but honestly by about 2002, 2003, the studios were all transferring over to computer animation. And a lot of people, including myself, were massively affected by that change, you know. Some people got out of the industry entirely. Some people retrained. And then traditional animation kind of has made a comeback a couple of times here and there, but it's still now, it's done on computer, but instead of working on paper, you're kind of working on digital paper, if that makes sense. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's 6. All right. Sorry, I've got to respond to a text because at some point I'm going to have to bail to go pick up my wife. There'll be a bus, so no need to get me. Okay. Then we are good to keep going. Let's see. Have you heard of the debate about squash before or after impact? Yes. Amongst animators. If so, any thoughts or opinions? Asked Blue Devil. Well, squash before impact is simply, in my opinion, it's not possible. Because if you've got the bouncing ball, right, and the bouncing ball is coming down this way, at this point here, it's going to be at its most stretched before then it hits here. And then you're going to be stretching up in this direction, right, coming up, something like that. This is the way it was taught to me, and this is the way I believe Eric Goldberg approaches it. So that the frame before the squash and the contact, this squashed ball is actually making contact with the ground, right? Then it squashes. So you wouldn't put this up here. You would actually have a contact point right here, but it's still squashed. Oh, so it's still stretched and it's made contact. Then you have your stretch or your squash, and then you go off. That's the concept that I understand. The reality is this works. I don't know about squash before impact, because how would you, like, by that logic, you're talking about, if this is our ground, you're talking about squashing here before you hit the ground? This, to me, it doesn't make any sense. So no, that would be my opinion on that. Interesting fact, Disney used to paint frames on glass and then place those over landscapes drawn beforehand on other sheets of glass. You know, there is something to what you're saying, but I also can't remember the effect exactly. But, you know, the reality is, by even like the 30s, they were painting on celluloid, thin plastic sheets, and putting that over the top of backgrounds. Got to dip. Thanks, take care, Potato Kitty. Thoughts on hyper-realistic animation like Akira? It's a style, right? Like, there's a place for it. Super laborious and painstaking to work on. But sure, why not? If there's an appetite for it. You know, I think that just generally, you look at a lot of like the Japanese animation, like even stuff like, you know, a lot of Miyazaki's work, I think, tends to lean more in that direction than, say, you know, the Disney stuff done around the same time would. For the most part, like, you know, yes, you're going to find exceptions, but Well, I think even just down to Miyazaki's use of human characters in his storytelling. And he would, in my opinion, always draw a little bit more realistically than the Disney counterparts. For the most part, yes, you'll find exceptions. Dip, is that a thing right now? This is what the kids say, Rick. Got a dip. All right. Let's do a 5. This is an interesting pose. Just the way that her weight is distributed here. When I picked this pose, I'd actually been hoping we could do it as a longer pose. I feel like it could really benefit from the longer time. But here we are. Talk about having rambled way too much today. And I can feel, in real time, I can feel my concentration levels just diminishing. Which is a shame, because I think this pose could have used, the higher energy. When I picked these poses though from this model, there was quite a lot that I actually didn't obviously put in today's set. So I think we'll draw her again in the not too distant future. I've actually really enjoyed drawing her. I think it'd be nice to revisit this this model sooner rather than later. Oh. Let's keep going here. Excuse me. She's holding a kind of a dish, like an offering. Lady and the Tramp. You know, Margot, you can't go far wrong with Lady and the Tramp. It's an absolutely gorgeous movie. Yeah. My favorite animated film I think of all time. Well, here's the thing. There's a difference, for, at least for me. I think most people that work in the animation would probably have a similar sentiment to this. There might be a difference between my favorite animated film and the film I think is the greatest piece of, from a craft perspective. Like, I think the greatest, the high point in animation, as far as the craft of animation, hand-drawn animation, for me at least, was Jungle Book. I think that by the time they got to Jungle Book, those guys were absolutely at the height of their powers. They were producing some of the most stunning animation that I think has ever been produced. But maybe not my favorite animated film, if you know what I mean. But from an animation point of view, it's an absolute masterpiece. Okay, that's 5. And even though this drawing isn't finished, I'm going to call it there on this one because we need to move on. This stream needs to come to an end at some point. Okay, we got one last pose, guys. I didn't even draw her feet back here, but this feet. Well, there's certainly a limited amount of concentration that I have on any given day, and I do find around the 2-hour mark I pretty much I'm spent. But we only have one pose to go. Let's do this. Non-dominant. Yes, Tina? You remembered. Thanks, Tina. All right, let's do it. Wow, I forgot all about non-dominant. Okay, let's do it. I'm still a sucker for the old Hobbit cartoon animation. Do you mean like the Ralph Bakshi stuff from the 70s? Yeah? It certainly had its own style, for sure. If you feel as though a large area of graduation oversimplifies an area, do you just impose some form on it? Or do you just be more slow and deliberate about emulating the reference? No, like if I've got a large area that's very simple, then I would tend to bring ideas that I know to be there, like anatomical ideas, even if I can't see them, to try and bring some visual interest. Hope that makes sense. Okay, let's, yes, the 70s version. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are huge fans of that movie. I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't had a sip of tea all stream. All right, we're switching hands. You can thank Tina. Let's do it. Just to assure an absolutely horrendous last drawing. Yeah, my brain is... Listen, this is not going to end well, guys. I'm telling you. This was going to be a tricky enough pose with my left hand at this point in the proceedings. See, people just keeping me on my toes. Got Margot pointing out that I'm not drawing in feet and legs. Rightly so. But Tina reminded me to draw with the opposite hand. You guys are making me earn my keep. Okay, so that leg is about there. Rib cage is going to be about here. Yep, this hand is drunk. Doesn't help that there's some serious foreshortening on this hand. So once again, coming back to the foreshortening thing, let's find the end point. Hand is going to be here. Fingers are sitting in here. Pectoral. This can be a bit higher, this navel. Good lord, this is bad. My pencil broke. This hand is sitting in here. Yikes, this is hard. Yeah, I know, Marco, I'm kidding with you. Richard ambidextrous? No, Derek, Richard's not ambidextrous, which is all too evident. But we're trying a little experiment here on the stream that for the last drawing I go to my opposite hand, and we've done it the last few streams, and at the end of each one I make a mental note to myself that I need to practice this between streams so that, you know, it kind of comes together when I'm in the stream, and then I promptly forget about it, and here we are. But no, I am, you know, a few years ago I did one drawing with my right hand that just out of curiosity, and it turned out not horrendous, we'll just say. And I remember thinking at the time, that would be a really nice skill to kind of develop. Who knows what it could potentially kind of help in the brain, the wiring of the brain. So anyway, we started a few streams ago and I'd completely forgotten about it. And then Tina decided to make me put my money where my mouth is and do it. And here we are. And there's our 5. So I think I can't even, yeah, just absolutely horrendous, guys. This is the worst one yet of the 3. So what have we learned today? That's the question. Many things, actually. It's been a very interesting stream, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And you get to watch me just make an absolute balls of this right at the end. So, so there you go. Happy Easter. Gosh, that's horrendous. Let's get off it quick. Did you ever see Karl Kopinski draw with both hands at the same time? I'm not sure if I've seen Karl specifically do it. I have seen people with that particular skill. Yeah, look, it's a skill for sure. Why would you want to eat your monies? It's probably we're getting lost in translation there. It's a term. It's not literal. You're very welcome, guys. As always, thanks so much for joining me. It's a bit of fun, right? We'll do it all again next week. Monday. I think we probably should visit a male model on Monday. It's been a while. Or as well, no, it's been 2 streams in fairness. But I would say most likely it will be a male model. And then we'll see for Thursday. It's anyone's guess. In the meantime, have a wonderful Easter for those of you that partake. And yes, happy Easter to all of you and your families. And yeah, I will see you Monday. Now, I'm not sure if the clocks change here this Sunday. I forget, but keep in mind the hour change. I will make a note if the hour has changed in the UK and not in the States, or vice versa. I will. I'll try and make a note, but just please do the math yourselves as well, if you wouldn't mind. Good stuff. That was a great stream. I had a blast. We had a lot of very interesting and fun conversations there. So thank you all for contributing all your wonderful ideas, and have a wonderful weekend. And most importantly, look after yourselves. Okay? I'll see you next week. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye.